Yes, we are living in a world where there is constant change. There are the media's projecting images that have no doubts created fear, worry about what tomorrow will bring and the like. I'm an optimist. I'm not a prophet. I don't know anything about tomorrow, but I do know that there's a 50-50 chance it'll be better or it'll be worse. And I believe in the cup half full. Let me come to that a little bit later. I want to structure this session in 3 parts. The first part, I want to share with you an understanding of who we are. What is it that we, personality-wise, in terms of our inner dynamics of emotion and mind, how do we respond to the exigencies of today? How do we respond in terms of the kind of pressures that we perceive, the stresses that take a toll on our body and our mind, etc.? So that'll be the first part of the discussion. The second part of the discussion will be to introduce you to a meditative set of tools that we can utilize in order to be able to create both inner well-being, inner peace, inner balance, as well as body health in passing. And the third part of our session will have a little interactive where you can speak to me, I can speak to you, questions certainly, and we can share from each other and learn from each other. Who am I? Who are you? So I want to take 2 vantage points, psychology and Hasidus. Hasidus explains some of the deeper concepts of Kabbalah in a way which you and I can assimilate and understand it well. Hasidus also adds much more information in terms of our inner nature and our inner being. So when I talk about myself, I am a whirling dervish dance of energies that coagulate into a ball of intermingling forces. That's pretty mystical. So how come I'm a physical person? So the short answer is physicality is simply dense spirituality. So for example, at this end of the spectrum, I have really dense material, lead. Let me move across the spectrum and I come to something less dense, wood. Further across, I come to water. After water, I come to air. After air, I come into molecular structure. After molecular structure, I get into micro subatomic forces, subatomic particles. Go further across, and I come to energy, finite energy, energy that I can measure, and energy in mass is interchangeable. But I go further than that. Underlying anything that's finite is something that's infinite. We call it spirituality. So in other words, me, hands, feet, body is really a projection of spirituality onto a screen of time and space. Physicality is simply dense spirituality. Now, what about me and personality and consciousness? Well, I'm a spiritual umbilical cord. Flowing from the infinity is a flow of energy that underlies me. I call it neshama. And that neshama, as it transcends multi-worlds and comes down to here, expresses in this world. Problem, neshama, spirituality, is not particularly comfortable in the limitations of time and space. Therefore, God has given us a spacesuit for the spiritual entity called the neshama. We call that spacesuit the body. The body's a marvelous piece of biological engineering, and it allows the energy of the neshama to flow through it so that it can express in the rarefied atmosphere of time and space. Give you an example. When the neshama flows through a wonderful piece of physiological engineering called ear, my conscious experience is hearing. When it flows through another piece of biological engineering called eye, my experience becomes that of seeing. When it flows through my brain, which is probably the most complex and wondrous aspect of my spacesuit, the result is what in English, I guess we would call mind. And we have other English words, intellect, intelligence, cogitation, thought process. Consciousness means the capacity of the total experience of the neshama flowing through all aspects of the body. That's who I essentially am. But God has a sense of humor. He makes us the joker of the pack. In what way? We have a thing called bechira chafshis, free choice. I can choose how to direct my consciousness. And this is the crux of what I want to share with you this morning. Well, your last night evening. I want to tell you that you have the power to choose your state of consciousness. You can choose your emotional state. You can choose how you interpret with the mind. And therefore, if we're able to train the exercise of choice, I can choose positivity or negativity. And that'll affect my total being, my life, my attitude, my responses, my relationships, my state of health and well-being as such. So this choice comes from an inner duality. How come I have been given the facility of choice? Because as the neshama flows into me, I like to call it a spiritual umbilical cord that flows from the very end of creation, the Ein Sof, right through, down through multi-worlds called Atzilus, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya, into me. Now, when it comes into me, it sort of becomes two strands of soul. One strand of soul, I'm going to call the Nefesh Bahamis. I'm going to call my ego self, my self-centeredness, my quest for food, clothing, shelter. And that quest for food, clothing, shelter, and then self-actualization, that's exactly what Maslow was postulating. But nevertheless, although these things are necessary, you must have food to live, clothing to protect, shelter to withstand the elements, and then you quest for your personal expression. Once these things are satisfied, they're still self-centered. They're to do with me. You know, sometimes even people come to me and say, you know, Laibl, I want to grow. I want to evolve. I want to develop. And I respond to them and say, why are you so selfish? And they say to me, hold on, what have I said wrong? I want to become a better person. I want to grow. And I say, pure selfishness. So they have this puzzled, quizzical look. What should I have asked? So I say to them, your question should have been better put like this. How can I become a better parent, a better spouse, a better citizen, a better friend? What's the difference between the two? The second set is in context of the other. It's in relationship. It's only when we turn to the other-centered self that all these aspects of personal wishes and wants to grow and evolve, etc., become legitimate. If it's all about me, if it's going to the fitness center and to the gym because I want to have body beautiful, that's not going to cut it. That's the ego self. That's the Nefesh Bahamis. That's the animalistic self. And I'm not in any way wishing to denigrate animal. Animal is the most wondrous creature of Hashem's creation. But an animal's got limitations. It has an instinctive survival drive. It doesn't have what you and I have, a sense of consciousness of time, of future, a sense of purpose and will, a sense of even being other-centered. And these qualities, the other-centeredness, is the other strand. We call that Nefesh Elokis, the godly soul. So I am constantly in a state of tension. Do I need to serve myself or do I need to serve the other? And this tension is what provides choice. This is Bechira Chavshis. The mastery practice is that at all times I direct my flow of consciousness through my Nefesh Elokis, my other-centered self. I'm here to serve you. I'm not here merely to serve myself. Now you will say that's highly altruistic. It is, but at the same time, it's something that you and I can achieve, and the payoff is called happiness and fulfillment. Think about it. Think of a moment in your life, as a child, as an adult, when you felt supremely happy, really ecstatic. Recall in your memory such a moment. And I guarantee you that moment was in context of another. And most probably when you were sharing and giving. It's the other-centered posture that leads us to ultimate joy and happiness. So if I have this duality within me and I'm in a state of conflict, how do I resolve it? So let me tell you what we know now from science. And because over the last 15 years or so, we've been able to peer into the brain and recognize some of its dynamics on screen. We can actually observe in real time what's happening in here. Amongst the many things we've discovered is as follows. What is a thought? A thought is when from one nerve end fiber flows neurotransmitters to another nerve end fiber of another cell. Now, I'm being awfully simplistic, but the basis is there. A thought consists of a pathway. The more I think that thought, the more I set a groove of that thought. The deeper I set the groove of that thought, the more likely I will repeat that thought. That's called habit. And if I am habitually involved in fear, insecurity, negative thinking, it's more likely that I will empower that flow to continue. How do we change that? We change that because of a very wonderful facility that God gave us. That is, you can't think of two thoughts at the same time. Have you noticed? You can't. You can oscillate very quickly between two thoughts, but in the same instant, you can't hold two thoughts. Therefore, if I have a habitual negative pathway, what I need to do is displace it, replace it, set down a new groove of mind, make the old one disused, let it start to have weeds grow on it and it's no longer utilized because I have a new pathway which I'm going to adopt, a positive one. This is where my second part of the session comes in. Meditation as a tool to set down a new path of consciousness. So just in summary, what I've said to you today is as follows. We have a sense of inner conflict. We can result that inner conflict in a state of insecurity, fear, stress, or we can move that consciousness into positivity and optimism. Now, that doesn't mean I close my eyes. There is COVID-19. There are riots in the streets. Do I close my eyes and pretend they're not there? Of course not. But I have to interpret those. And usually what happens with interpretation is I become a fortune teller. You become a fortune teller. And usually your fortune telling crystal ball says, wow, this is horrible and tomorrow's going to be even worse. You don't say those words, but that's what worry is. When a person worries, that means they're playing fortune teller and they're predicting a negative outcome. Well, guess what? You're not a prophet. You're not a crystal ball gazer. You don't know anything about tomorrow. There's a 50-50 statistical probability that tomorrow is going to be better or worse. Why do you jump to the interpretation of negativity? Unless you assume for yourself that capacity to be a prophet. And since you don't, since you can't, since you're not a prophet, well, at least I'm not, and there may be one of you that is, but I'm presuming that most of you are not, I'm going to say to you that you need to be able to take the 50% of positivity. And I'm going to give you two reasons for that. One reason is positive thinking produces health and well-being. Clear statistical evidence. Secondly, positive thinking creates positive relationships. And as the Harvard University results from last year, where they noted that relationships are the predictor of joy and happiness, positive relationships is a very big one. So how do we retrain ourselves to say, you know what, COVID-19, I know that it too will pass. Baruch Hashem. Hashem has kept me intact. I look at the world and I see horrible results, but nevertheless, I find myself here listening to Laibl Wolf, sitting together with Pinny, and being able to say, hey, I'm intact. Baruch Hashem. I know that it's hard. I know it's difficult, but I'm an optimist. I'll think positively. These are axiomatic. There's no proof of this, but this is a choice that you can make. So, retraining. What does the word meditation mean? The word meditation means basically focusing. If you consult Professor Google, who's the resident expert on everything under the sun, you will find some hundreds of definitions and examples of what is called in the contemporary world meditation. There isn't one right way of meditating. If anyone says to you, I know the way to meditate, steer clear of them. Meditation is just a word, but it's a tool that can be utilized. And the tool is that of focusing. What you focus on, why you focus, how you focus, well, that depends on the goals of the pathway from which it stems. Spiritual goals, psychological goals, physical health goals. There are many goals why you might want to focus and use what's called meditation. Unfortunately, the word for most of us is the result of some enterprising Eastern gurus who made their way across in the 60s and 70s to the West and reintroduced the word in a very specific manner. So most of our meditations that you and I colloquially refer to are Eastern meditations. That's fine, except that for Jewish people, it can be a problem. Because in a lot of the Eastern meditations, there is an element that we call Avodah Zarah, literally idol worship, or negative impacts on our soul. And now that's a strange concept for most of us. So let me just say very quickly, there are 71 different souls in creation. Why God created 71? Well, you'll have to send a letter to the editor. I have no idea. But God created 71. One of these is Jewish. And each soul system has its deliberate pathway in creation, what it needs to do. There are certain elements of each other that affect each other adversely. Avodah Zarah is one of these. So you have to be careful in Eastern meditations to be able to sift out that which is hurtful. But I'm not going to refer to that at all. I'm going to use focusing technique for physical well-being, mental stability. And you know, that's a mitzvah. Health and well-being is as much a mitzvah as is kashrus and Shabbos. There's no way that your inner self, your true inner personality, which resides in the neshama, that it can express itself unless the body is in good shape. And I don't mean body beautiful. I mean that it actually operates optimally. That requires what you and I call health and wellness. And that's why it is an absolute mitzvah. Otherwise, you can't express your inner self optimally as such. So I'm going to now take you through a few exercises in context of meditative focusing. And the first exercise I'm going to share with you is not an uncommon one based on breath. Now, why breath? And it's used in many pathways, both in terms of creating inner stillness and balance within and a sense of quietism within. But it's also used spiritually in some pathways. And that's because it's an easy focus. When you breathe, there's a toing and froing, in and out. There's a constancy of motion. And that's an easy one to focus on and take your mind from where it was before. It clears the mind. You're able to create that vacuum of space so that you have that moment of inner peace before you move forward. And the moving forward will be the second exercise I'm going to take you through. But in Judaism, focusing on breath has some deeper spiritual insight. The Hebrew word for breath, neshima. The Hebrew word for soul, neshama. Obviously, etymologically, the two are related. We know that your breathing reveals the state of the flow of your soul. Or put it in another way, breath is the first level of expression of the soul. It tells us what's happening inside, mentally and emotionally. Give you a very interesting example. Do you remember back in Parashas Shemos, in the book of Shemos, the second book of the Bible, in that Chumash, an old man comes out of the desert, bearded, solemn, tall, stately, and he says to the Jewish people, you know, we're all going to leave and go to our promised land. Wow. Except the way that the people respond is, old man, go away. We're too busy. We've got this agenda. We've got taskmasters, and they're telling us what to do. We haven't got any time whatsoever to listen to rabbling like yours. Rashi comments there, and he says the reason they respond like that is mikoitzer ruach. What does that mean? Shortness of breath. They're breathing shallowly. They're breathing quickly. They're breathing stressfully. And therefore, under those circumstances, the response mechanism is inner negativity. Breath and state of being are utterly related. So that'll be our first exercise. Our second exercise, which we'll segue to during the course of the session, is one that deals with a sense of security and using visualization technique in order to be able to walk away with a sense of positivity about tomorrow. So that will be the two stages of our meditative exercise as such. One more word about theory of stress before I enter into the actual exercises. Stress does not exist out there. The riots don't cause stress. COVID-19 doesn't cause stress. I cause stress. It's my interpretation of what the media is projecting to me. It's my interpretation of the statistics that are being media projected in terms of illness and the like. The way I interpret creates the stress. Stress is not an objective enemy out there. Stress is how I read the situation negatively, causing worry. So you and I have power over stress. You and I can be stressed, or we can be de-stressed. Not distressed, de-stressed. And I want to indicate to you that the creative visualization technique that we'll be utilizing is for the very purpose of de-stressing as such. All right, let's go into the exercise. So wherever you are, just sit in a position of symmetry, feet next to each other on the ground, hands resting on your knees and thighs, back fairly straight without being too rigid, head well balanced on your shoulders, shoulders a little slumped, and gently close your eyes. And just focus on your breath, breathing quite normally, in and out, following your breath, being aware of it. And to be more aware of it, I'm going to ask you to breathe in and out through your nose. And as you breathe in and out through your nose, become aware of the difference in temperature of the air entering your nostrils compared to the temperature of the air exiting from your nasal passages. And just become aware that the air entering is somewhat cooler and the air exiting is somewhat warmer. If you slow down and deepen the in and out breath through the nose, that temperature difference will become much more marked. Slower, deeper, breath in through the nose, cooler air, and out, warmer air. And just take 2 or 3 slow, deep breaths, focused on that temperature difference. Now, you may have noticed at the back of your mind that your chest was moving in and out. I want you, with your next breath in, to direct your air below your chest to your abdomen. And to do that, as you breathe in, expand your abdomen to collect the air, and then pull your abdomen in to expel the air. So take a slow, deep breath in through the nose, direct it down to the abdomen by expanding the abdomen, and then collect it and contract it and expel the air. This is a little counterintuitive, so you need to practice it. And the trick is to expand your abdomen as you are breathing in. So just practice it, breathing in, down to the abdomen, expanding it. And then contracting the abdomen, the tummy's pulled in to get the air out again. And practice for 3 or 4 more breaths, because it is counterintuitive. And notice that your chest will be relatively still now, and that your abdomen will do the pumping. Slow it down, deepen it, and it's easier as you expand your abdomen to collect the inhaling. And now let's lend some rhythm to the breathing. We'll breathe in for a count of 3, hold for a count of 3, and breathe out for a count of 4. So take a slow, deep breath in, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, out, 2, 3, 4. Breathing abdominally, in, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, out, 2, 3, 4. And continue breathing in and out deeply, slowly, abdominally, rhythmically, gracefully, smoothly, a perfect cycle, a round circle. And become aware how relaxed you have become in the space of a few short minutes, simply by focusing on your breath. I'm now going to segue to the second part of the exercise. I want you to become aware of a glow of light in the center of your head. A gentle glow, warming, bringing light to your whole head. Become aware of that light within your head. Gentle glow, very pleasant. I want you to increase the intensity of that glow so that it begins to filter down your neck into your torso, chest and back area. Intensify it. Allow the light to filter in and warm your chest area, almost seeing that glow inside with your inner eye. feeling its warmth and pleasantness. Intensify the glow even further so it begins to filter through to your limbs, through your arms, hands, fingers, and now through your thighs, legs, feet, toes, feeling a pleasant, warm glow throughout your body. Intensify the glow further so it begins to glow from your skin, creating a glow all around you. That wonderful glow around you protects you. We call that Magen Avraham, Abraham's shield. And you create that aura around you, a shield that protects you physically, emotionally, spiritually. Be aware of the glow emanating from your skin, creating your aura around you, a Magen Avraham. Feeling safe, secure. Intensify the glow further so the aura begins to surround all those in your home itself. Feeling very safe where you are, secure, bodily and spiritually. Allow to intensify further so that your glow reaches out into the world, leaving your spiritual signature, your footprint in the sands of time, making the world a better place, alleviating the tensions, alleviating the illness with your glow, your contribution, your aura, your neshama. Become aware of the aura around you again and commit yourself to review this visualization whenever fear starts to take hold, whenever worry begins to invade. Recall your protective layer, your Magen Avraham, that you always have around you. Focus again on your breath, breathing in through your nose and out through your nose. Registering the difference in temperature of the in-breath, cooler, to the out-breath, warmer. Begin moving your fingers and your toes wherever you're seated. Move your fingers now, move your toes. And when you feel ready, begin to gently open your eyes, coming all the way back, opening your eyes, and joining me once again. Well, for those of you who fell asleep, I won't be able to say goodbye to you, but be that as it may. What did we do then? It's something you can do at any time that you choose. We first created a vacuum inside of inner peace. It's not a vacuum. We supplanted any previous worries or concerns through previous thoughts with a moment of inner peace and balance, which segued then successfully to being able to inject a creative visualization, which gave us a sense that you and I are protected. In the same way as a mezuzah protects the home in a very broad ambit manner, so does your neshama extend and protect you. And therefore, when worry and concern starts to invade, stop and pause, gain balance, because worry does nothing but hurt you. Nothing is gained by that whatsoever. So let me just conclude with one particular teaching, which I want to share with you. There are two words that describe the state of consciousness that we should adopt and always live, like an aura around us. And the two words are emunah and bitachon. Emunah and bitachon. What are they? Well, we translate emunah as faith and bitachon as trust or security. But they're big words, and I don't necessarily know what those big words mean. So I'm going to give you a pragmatic understanding based on how the Lubavitcher Rebbe explained it. Emunah is the belief that everything that has ever happened to you is for your current good. Whatever it might have been, it's for your present good in ways that you and I can't possibly understand. Bitachon is the belief that the challenge you face now will have a positive outcome. Whatever challenges you have right now, they will end up well. So, Emunah deals from the past to the present. Whatever's ever happened to you, even if it were painful, God forbid, it's for your good in ways you cannot understand. Bitachon deals from the present to the future. The challenge I face now will have a positive outcome. And whatever the outcome that is, I still say, Gam zu l'tova. That too is for the good. Can I prove these to you? Absolutely not. They're beliefs. They're axiomatic propositions. But on the other hand, you can't disprove them either. We're on even ground. As I said earlier, there's a 50-50 statistical probability that really tomorrow won't be as good or will be better. If you opt arbitrarily for the positive, you get the benefits I said earlier, which are health and wellness. We know full well statistical evidence that people who are positive and optimistic are healthier, and people who are pessimistic correlate with illness. And secondly, as I said earlier, relationships improve. People like to be around positively minded people, don't like to be around pessimists and negative minded people. So if you want to enrich your range of relationships and the quality of relationships, choose axiomatically to adopt these two beliefs, emunah and bitachon. I guarantee you, your life will improve immensely as a consequence. And you'll read the future very differently. Your response to the media-driven fears, and media is calculated to cause fear because it knows its psychology well. If it can frighten you, you'll be glued to the screen. If you're glued to the screen, ratings will improve. If ratings improve, it becomes better commerce. It becomes better commerce, it's profitable. You are the patsy in this whole system. And therefore, you need to have your own composure. All right, that's enough talking from me, I think, for this session. But I'd love to hear from you. And if there are any thoughts you'd like to share, I'd love to listen, questions, I can respond, I certainly will. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Wolf, for that very, wonderful lecture and that exercise that I'm sure everybody experimented and now is feeling a lot more peaceful and calm and spiritual. I've never opened up the chat yet because the first week when we did, we had some hackers, but I will open it up now.
Good.
And allow for a person, and I will read we're not going to unmute anyone, but let me allow to open up a chat, and let me see if we could get a couple of questions. Participant can chat with host only. Okay, so I opened it up now. If anybody wants to post a question for Rabbi Wolf, he may do so. I just have a couple of questions. Not questions, I just want to have one comment on Rabbi Wolf, on what you mentioned, which was, I think, very apropos, when you compared the two Hebrew words, neshama for soul and neshima for breath. And I think it was very time appropriate, because we are just coming, and who knows if we've totally finished the pandemic, and God willing we have, but in our prayers that we say every day, Rabbi Wolf, we say Kol HaNeshama Tehalel Kahaluka. We thank Hashem for every breath. And this is something that I think before the pandemic we took for granted. And perhaps when we have to look for something positive that happens from a negative, I think this pandemic has taught us to not take anything for granted. Even being able to wake up in the morning and take that breath, when we say the Moda'ani, thanking Hashem for returning our soul, it's something that we never considered as a big deal. And now seeing so many people who were suffering and not being able to breathe, I think this is something very, very meaningful. I just want to also say, before I start, I see the questions are flying. I'm going to ask you the first question in a moment. I just want to encourage that next week, by the way, we have an amazing speaker again, Rabbi David Eliezeri, who's one of Chabad's bigwigs, and he's going to be discussing Chabad Unmasked. What makes the rabbis what makes Chabad take the secrets to Chabad success? And you don't want to miss next week's beautiful feature lecture that we have planned for next week. Let me just figure. Again, I'm new to the Zoom, so I'm trying to figure out how to start. I just want. Oh, okay. Hold on. We need questions. How do you? 1 second here. Let's see what I could do here. So first question we had over here, what are the 71 souls of creation about? And I will just ask you, Rabbi Wolf, because we have so many questions, if we could take, just like a minute or two to answer so we could get to some more questions. Thank
Certainly.
you.
71 soul systems. I mean, one of the aspects of creation is there's design. Everything's got design. As we study in physics and chemistry, everything's governed by laws. Everything's governed by design. Everything's got its particular shape, so to speak, and the interchange of energy and mass, and between micro particles, there's a whole emptiness of space in which there's energy. And of course, there'll be spiritual energy. I don't know why God created the world in this design. I have no idea why God created 71 soul systems and not 20 and not a million. I can't answer it. I don't know why we have carbon. I don't know why we have calcium. I don't know why. In fact, you need to answer that question by sending a letter to the editor. Maybe he'll give you an answer, but there's definite design. So in short, I can't give you a direct answer, but I can tell you that each soul system is like a different instrument in a symphony orchestra. And each player has to play its notes for the total beauty of the symphony to be heard. If one player decides to get bored and leave, there's a deficiency in the whole sound. If the Jew gets bored and becomes a Buddhist, there's a deficiency in the sound. We need to have each player playing his or her own music for the whole beauty to take place. 71 instruments in God's symphony orchestra.
Beautiful, Rabbi Wolf. So a lot of the questions are here. First of all, is tonight's class being recorded? Yes, it'll be on Facebook Live. It'll be on YouTube. So you could do a search, or you could be in contact with us, and we will make sure you get a copy. A question I have here, Rabbi Wolf, where could they get more exercises and classes? Do you have a website that people could log on to after the class that they can access some more exercises that you, and speeches and lectures that you offer?
In the chat, you'll find that I put up my email address. That's almost the very first item in the chat. I put out daily meditations, daily audio meditations, 60 seconds to wake up to and to go to sleep with. If you want to access those or any other formats, just email me. They are on WhatsApp. Now, therefore, you'll have to give me your telephone number for the WhatsApp, and you'll have to put our number into your system, which I'll give you via the email of response. So the answer is yes, more than happy to. Just email me and we'll be able to arrange that. I could easily even arrange it through Rabbi for the distribution of it.
Okay, exactly. If anybody gets emails us or sends us any information, I will forward it to you. Another question that's been being asked here is there a better time, morning, at night? How does the bedtime Shema play a role in the meditation and the exercises that you are recommending?
The most important aspect of the exercise is practice, practice, practice. You can't undo a groove of the mind unless you practice a new one and become so repetitive that it takes the place of the old one, like playing a piano. It makes no sense to learn the theory of music if your fingers don't practice the scales. The practice of the scales is the most important element as such. You can reduce the kind of exercise that we did together down to about 60 seconds after practicing it over and over again. I suggest that any practice of meditation takes place 3 times a day. Morning, and the Modeh Ani meditation, the ability to exercise gratitude in the world, is a very good one for the morning. Then midday, to break the cycle of stress that's accumulated. And then the evening, as you said, before in the Shema itself, before you fall asleep, which is when your soul goes higher for its daily, nightly tutorial. That's a very good time to also practice so you get a good night's sleep. So yeah, 3 times a day, but initially practice, 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 and it becomes a new pathway of the mind.
Wonderful advice, Rabbi Wolf. Okay, here's, I think, a very powerful question. And I don't know how you do this in 60 to 90 seconds, but this could encompass a lot of, what everybody else is thinking. The question is, you're single and have no children. How would you strengthen your emunah, your faith and trust, your betachon? Why would Hashem want this for me? And I think, this was asked by one individual, but I think this is really a question for anyone that has to face any kind of trial and tribulation. Because, when we're trying to do the right thing, and then all of a sudden Hashem is not just blessing us with whatever our heart desires, how are we able to strengthen our faith and trust in Hashem? And why would Hashem want this for anyone?
That's a really severe test. Now, I would probably, if we were speaking live, I would ask the age of the individual who asked the question. But everything happens exactly on cue when it needs to happen. Granting of a life that we nurture and bring it into the world so it becomes a fulfillment of the purpose of creation is, of course, a high order human task. When a child is not offered to us, it means, number one, we have some very, very important other agenda in life which needs to be carried out without the child being there. I can't tell you what that might be. Your life is something that you understand from your life circumstances, but it is obvious that it's deliberate, and that deliberateness is good. It's the nature of good, God, good, to do only good. And therefore, the fact that there isn't a child means that there is even a more paramount agenda. And that's amazing. There's something even more important than a child can be something we could conceive of as being part of your life's purpose. I can't enter into your life and answer because I don't know you. Email me and we'll have a chat about it. But there's for sure something terribly important for you to achieve in life under these circumstances.
Thank you, Rabbi Wolf. So first of all, before I go further, and we'll do maybe one or two more, I want to wish the young lady who asked the question, I wish on behalf of all our prayers here, that your prayers are answered and you should be blessed with everything that your heart desires and needs. May you find your bashert and be blessed with children and have lots of nachas from all your future endeavors. Another question. Thank you. I have another question here, which, you know, when we are dealing with meditation, and this is very, and you talked about science and some of it today, yogas and meditation, you know, this is a very popular, these are very popular terminologies today. Someone is asking, can you interpret mazel? What does mazel mean, and how does that play with everything that we're discussing, you know, and that you've suggested today? The word mazel, how do you interpret it and how does it fit in?
The word mazel is commonly translated incorrectly as luck. It's not luck. The word mazal comes from the verb nozel, and you find it in Tanakh, where it says, for example, the river nozel milvanon, the river flows from Lebanon. It's a verb of flow. The word mazel means what I referred to earlier as a spiritual umbilical cord. Through that spiritual umbilical cord that connects you to the highest source of godliness is a flow of energy. The intensity and quality of that energy is the mazel. And therefore, when we wish someone mazel tov, what we're saying is a very profoundly spiritual blessing, which is, may the spiritual flow of your spiritual umbilical cord connecting you to God be intensified in such a way that it can be seen in a positive outcome in the world according to your heart's desire. That's what we mean by mazel tov. So don't make mazel tov a throwaway line. It's a very profound blessing that we bless each other with.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Wolf. I have one more question. So, but first of all, I want to say, because many people are asking again, what's the email address? So Rabbi Wolf's email address is spiritgrow. Yes,
one word.
At
laibelwolf.com. And Laibl Wolf is spelled LAIBLWOLF.com.
Right, that was in Australian. So again, it's spiritgrow at Laibl, LAIBLWOLF.com. And correct. People are asking for my email address. So right. It's Chabad, CHABAD, SWB for Southwest Broward, Chabad, SWB at gmail.com. I also want to take this opportunity. I don't usually do it, but we have a whole lineup of great speakers. We're trying to continue this feature lecture. And if anybody wants to sponsor in memory and in honor, we'll do a shout out. Please go to chabadswb.com/donate. And all the proceeds that come from the donations here will only go to get big great, exciting, inspiring lectures. We've had from Manis Friedman, we had Rabbi Lipsker, we had last week Rabbi Mintz, we had Rabbi Brisky. We've had tremendous speakers. Tonight we have Rabbi Wolf. Next week we have Rabbi Eliezeri. And I have 2-3 very big surprises, but I want to keep you in suspense. For the last question, Rabbi Wolf. But before I do, one of the Chabad houses, the Chabad of the Waterways, took the first draft that was sent, and I sent it to the rabbis to proof. And the first one, for whatever reason, it said it was at 8:30. So we're having a lot of members now joining from Chabad of the Waterways. Rabbi Yisrael Bruce Wankin, who's doing a tremendous job here in South Florida. And one of his congregants actually is co-sponsoring tonight's event. John and Jessica Pegelson, they're doing it in memory, Li'ilu Nishmat Shirley Sarah Batleya. So we want to thank you for your sponsorship and welcome the whole community of the Waterways. Unfortunately, tonight's session started at 7:30, but it was recorded. You can catch it on Facebook Live. Rabbi Bruce Wankin will be sending it out. It's going to be on YouTube, and that's for everyone else. I will read all the chats, all the questions later on, and either myself or Rabbi Wolf perhaps will respond. Let me again, just before we ask that last question and let Rabbi Wolf finish up, I want to welcome the community of West Boynton, especially Berwick, on his son's yahrzeit last Friday. We mentioned it last week, but he had already signed off. I want to wish a refuah shlema, a complete and speedy recovery, to Chana Malka Bas Chaya Zisel, and the upcoming yahrzeit of her father, Zusha ben Ruvain. Welcome the community of Delray, the community of Las Olas, the community of Chabad of the Space and Treasure Coast. I want to welcome Rabbi Koppel Silverberg and Rabbi Engel, who are on from the Chabad community of Tamarack. I want to welcome the Shul of Bal Harbor, the Chabad of Coral Springs, Rabbi Yankee Denberg of Chabad of Southwest Coral Springs, and all of your community. There were over 25 community members from the Chabad community of Venice and Northport, Florida, Rabbi Shalom Schmerling, Rabbi Yossi Wolf, I saw you on Chabad of Cutler Bay and Homestead, and Rabbi Laibl Kadan of Chabad Ocean Synagogue. These are just some of the Chabads who have been chipping in to make these evenings possible. The final question, Rabbi Wolf, and I think it's a good one. I think this summarizes your talk today. And it came from a young man saying, I am working so hard on being a positive person. And sometimes, negativity seeps in. Can you basically give us your last couple of minutes for all of us on, and we were almost 200 people before at computers, and many more who signed on to Facebook Live. Can you please, Rabbi Wolf, just give us, in a nutshell, how to remain positive, especially in these most trying times? Thank you, Rabbi Wolf.
The kind of attitudinal response that we have is a barometer of to what extent are we filtering the external stimuli, the thoughts and the ideas that are being projected into our minds and hearts. And we need to have a good filter in place. And from time to time, that filter needs cleaning. Now, the filter cleaning process is actually called tefillah, prayer. And prayer can be a multifaceted feature. It can be very long, it can be very short. But that's the cleaning of the filter so that we're able then to balance the information that comes in. Let me tell you that my pass mark for everyone is 7 out of 10, which means you're allowed to fail 3 times out of 10. You don't have to seek to be 10 out of 10. To seek perfection sometimes has its faults associated with it. There's a certain possibility of ego-centeredness coming into it as such. 7 out of 10, but you've got to get 7 out of 10 where you keep getting 0 out of 10, especially. If we're running around morose, gosh, what's happening to the world is, tomorrow America's going to fall apart and, COVID's going to this is just the beginning of it. If you've got to think like that, then the result is you're getting 0 out of 10. To be able to be a reasonable individual, you need to filter. And not only that, since you're not a prophet, I repeat again, Emunah and Bitachon. And that keeps you on the straight and narrow. You're a realist, but at the same time, you take a positive vantage point of life. One last thing, Rabbi. There's a wonderful teaching of the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he noted on the first page of a work known as Likutei Diburim. And on that first page, he says, you can project a thought to someone across the other side of the globe, and with your thought, affect that person spiritually and materially. We don't stop at the surface of our skin. We radiate outwards. Even a thought leaves a legacy, especially if you focus on someone. If you focus positive thoughts into the world, you affect the world. You're a partner in creation. You're a co-creator of the unfinished symphony. So please make sure that it's not just for yourself, I want to have a state of peace, but rather you are continuing to help Hashem to create the ideal world. Your role is there. Therefore, if you don't want to be affected by the world, be a giver. Give out positivity, and you'll make the world a better place.